नेक्स्ट है नियर सो जगह बोलना है कोई बात करो मुझे Hello and welcome to the English class. I hope all of you are fine and hale and hearty. The things that I would be teaching in this class that I have planned to teach you is basic English grammar. Well, this will be useful to the students from class 8 up to 12, including all the aspirants who are preparing for JK, SSB exams and other competitive exams. So, without wasting any further time, let me start with our today's lecture. The very first thing that comes to the mind of a person when we talk about grammar, not necessarily English grammar, grammar of any language, is that we define grammar by a set of rules that governs a language. Now, when we try to analyze the definition, I am saying a set of rules that governs a language. So, every language has its forms. The first form of a language is always it is the scripted form. That is to say that we write in a language. That is the script of the language. And then we have the spoken form of the language. That means we speak what we write. So these are the two basic forms of any language. And apart from this, we also have grammar. Grammar is a set of rules which tells us how to make the usage of language and how to make the language symmetrical. Say, for example, in this part of the world where we live, a bag is called a bag. A bag is called a bag. If I have to say that I have a bag, when I say I have a bag, it means that I possess a bag. I possess one bag. And in any other part of the world, they would be using the same form of the verb and the same tense. And who teaches us this? This is grammar. And if grammar would not be there, so maybe in one part of the world, we will be saying, I have a bag. And in another place, at another place, we will be saying, I had a bag. So there would be confusion. And to clear this confusion, we have grammar. Now, we have to say, where does a language start? What is the basic unit of a language? The basic unit of any language is alphabet. And what is an alphabet? What's an alphabet? It is a set of letters. A set of letters is called alphabet. And why do we need alphabet? Alphabet, the set of letters, these are actually the symbols which represent the words. It is by the dint of these alphabet, it is by the dint of these letters that we are in a position to form a word. And by when we form the words, we are in a position to form the sentences and paragraphs, and then our speech is formed. And now, how many alphabet do we have in English? We have only one alphabet. There is only one alphabet. When we say there are 26 alphabets in English, it is wrong to say we have only one alphabet, but we have 26 letters. And similarly, in other language, you have only one alphabet and then you have number of letters. Now, the alphabet word, it is actually a combination of two Greek words, alpha and beta, which are actually the two symbols or which are actually the two letters of Greek alphabet, alpha and beta. So this why this has been taken out from the Greek. The reason is that because we know that Greek and Latin, they are the dead language. They are not in use anymore. So that's why whenever we have to extract anything, we extract it from these words, from these languages. And they are called archaic language. Archaic means something that is not in use at the present. Say, for example, you might have heard about too many words. Say, for example, we say petroleum. Petroleum is a word which is a combination of two Greek words, petra and then oleum. So, why it's being derived from Greek? Because we know that it's an archaic language, so there cannot be any change there in it. And now, when we talk about the basic English grammar course, so these are the things that I would be teaching you. So we will be starting from parts of speech. We would be I would be teaching you parts of speech. I would be teaching you sentence, then tense, and then direct indirect speech. So on and so forth. Now, what we are to take at the first is the word itself. Now, what's a word? Word is a combination of letters. When we say word is a combination of letters, so I could simply say, for example, JBD. It is a combination of letters, but it's not a word. So, when we say in a proper way, it is a combination of letters which gives a meaning, which makes a sense, which makes a sense. So, just because we are getting hold of few letters and we are in a huff, we jumble them, it doesn't make any word. So, word is basically a combination of letters which makes any sense. Just like we say BOY is boy, we say GIRL is girl. So these are the words. And now, how many types of words do we have? Say, for example, in broad classification, we have mono words, then we have compound words, mono words are also called simple words. Now, you might get it from the word itself. Mono means one. Mono means one. And compound, we will come to this later on. Say, for example, when we say boy, judge, teacher, cricket, glass, these words are monowords. That means monoword is a word which you cannot split. We can't split. It is indivisible. We can't divide it any further. So, for example, when we split the word boy, so it will scatter. Nothing will remain there. So these are called simple words or monowords. That means those words which cannot be divided any further, which are indivisible, they are called simple words. Then we come to compound words. Compound words are those words which are actually the combination of more than one word. More than one word. But we have to keep it in mind that when these words split, they make when these words split, so They make different words and they are all meaningful. Say, for example, we say international. International is a compound word because it is made up of two words, enter and national. Enter and national. If we split this word, enter carries its own meaning and national carries its own meaning. So it is an international. International is a compound word. Similarly, there are too many words where you can see that. For example, I will say computerize. Compute rise. So it is a combination of two words. One is compute. Compute means to calculate, and then it is rise. Or we can also say it is computerize. So sometimes we can say like this, it's a compound word, but we can also say like this. If it is computer, then we add ise. So here it is a suffix. It's not a compound word here. So compound words are those words which are made up of more than one word, and where every word retains its individuality. That is to say that every word, when we split it, carries its own meaning. So it's not necessary that it will be a combination of only two words. It can be more than that. It can be more than that. Okay. Moving on to our next. So you got to know what alphabet is, what letter is, what word or. So the thing is that word formation. How do we form words? How do we form words? The very first simple thing that I would like to tell you is that words are formed by the combination of letters. As I said earlier, the combination of letters which makes a sense is a word. But what are the other ways of making words? How do you form words? For example, the very first other way is fixation. Fixation. It's a method by which we form words. Fixation is of two types, prefix and suffix. Prefix and suffix. That is to say, you have a word and then you add something to the beginning of the word, or you add something to the end of the word, and it becomes a completely new word. So that is called fixation. But we have to see that this fixation is possible only when we have a root word. When we have a root word. Now, what is a root word? Again, I will come back to the point. Root word is a word which is indivisible, which cannot be divided any further. For example, I told you girl. Girl is a simple word. That means it is indivisible. So it is the root word. So you can't divide it any further. If it is divided any further, it will split, it will scatter, it will not exist. And then if I add ish to this, it becomes girlish. It becomes girlish. So girlish is an adjective. That is to say, when we say girlish, girlish is an adjective. And I have added a suffix to it. When we add something to the end of the word, it's called suffix. So I have fixed something, affixed it. And now the root word is girl. That means beyond this point, you can't divide this word. And now when I add ish to it, you have fixed something. What have we fixed? We have fixed suffix. And this is one of the ways by which you can form the words. And similarly, for example, I have the word proper. I have the word proper. Proper is indivisible. It is indivisible. If you split it, it will scatter, it will die. Now, if I add I am to this, it becomes improper. It becomes, the total reversal of the thing happens. Proper is something else and improper is something else. So improper is an affixed word. So I have added a suffix to it and then it becomes another word. So this is the very first thing, is that when we combine letters to make which give sense, and it is called uh, a word. Then the other way of forming the words is word formation is fixation. That means you add prefix and suffix to the words, and then it becomes there. You have some other words there. And then similarly, there are too many words. For example, the basic word is compute. The basic word is compute. Compute means to calculate. When we are given certain numbers, when we are given certain digits, and we have to calculate them, that is called compute, or we can say computing. And now you can fix it in a too many ways. For example, by removing this E, I will say CUMPUTING. Computing, that means you have turned it into computing is a process of compute. When we compute, that process is called computing. Or similarly, I can make computer of compute. By simply adding R here, it becomes computer. Then I will say ISE, it becomes computerize. Then I will say SATIO, and it becomes computerization. So here you can see that by the help of prefixes and suffixes, we can reorder, we can change the sense of the word, we can change the part of speech of the word. Sometimes you will see it is a noun, then it becomes verb, then it becomes adjective. So here if you see computerization, computerization is the process of computerizing. So here the basic word again, the root word is compute. The root word is compute. That means root word, again I will say that root word is a word which cannot be divided any further. It is indivisible. If you divide, if you split this word compute, so the word dies. It doesn't remain alive. It doesn't remain to be there. So this is how we form the words, word formation, fixation, prefix and suffix. And then as I said earlier, and then we can also do one more thing is that sometimes we reorder the words. We reorder the words. So we can just change the spelling of the words and change some letters in between, and then new words can be formed. This is something very basic that all of you must know. Along with this, I would like to teach you about the syllable. Just like a word is made up of too many small units, say for example, I said computer. So these are small units. Come is one, put is second, and is third. These are actually three sounds which combine together to make computer. So this separate sound come, and then this separate sound put, and then this separate sound these are called syllables. These are called syllables. Syllable is basically one sound. One sound is called syllable. So if we say computer is a trisyllabic word, it is a trisyllabic word. That means you can find three syllables in this. And similarly, we have monosyllabic words, we have bisyllabic words, we have trisyllabic words, then we have polysyllabic words. That means where you can have more than three syllables. Now, it is, yes, 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 yes. But yes, okay, I got your question. Now let me answer that. You are saying that I said compute is a word, it cannot be divided, it is indivisible. It is fine, but that is true when we come to written form of the language. Not this is I'm talking about spoken form of the language here. So that is some, say for example, if I here, I will repeat it. I had a call in the meantime. So when I said that root word is which cannot be divided any further. when we pronounce the word, so we have to pronounce it in such a way that nothing, what we can say, remains to what we can say, this pronunciation. Here again, this is indivisible. I'm not saying that it is divided here, but I'm just saying sounds. There are three sounds. I'm not saying there are three words in it. That was true when we said the when I say it is indivisible. Indivisible means that if we say come and put, these are not two words. They are not two words. That's why I said if we split them, it dies. But they are two sounds. So similarly here, when we talk about syllable, it is true. It is in context with the spoken form of the language, not in context with the written form of the language. I hope you get it. Okay. Now, the main thing that I was going to teach after this word formation is that we direct away we reach to sentence after word, which is a very bad thing. We often say that the combination of words is called a sentence, which is not untrue. That is true. That is a fact. I'm not disagreeing with that. We say a group of words makes a sentence. That is true. Everybody has to agree with it. But the question that arises here is that does a group of words directly make a sentence? So that means to say, if, for example, we put the things in order, so we say letter, then we say word, and then we say there is sentence. So is it true? Is there anything that lies between word and sentence? That's my question. So do you have any idea about it? Is there anything that lies between word and sentence? I'm not saying that. I'm saying if we put the things in order, we say first there is letter, then there is word, then there is sentence. So I am saying, is there something that lies between word and sentence? So are we skipping something? Yes, we are skipping. See what we are skipping. We are skipping a phrase, we are skipping a clause. Then on comes the sentence. Then on comes the sentence. Now, how do we define a sentence? We define a sentence that it is a group of words which gives a complete sense. Which gives a complete sense. So, and it is not only this, a group of words which gives a complete sense. We say when a group of words is put in a particular order and it gives a sentence, then it is a sentence. Say, for example, if I would say, boy, am I a, it is a group of words, and to some extent it carries some sense as well, but it is not a sentence. So the right definition is that a group of words put in the right order to give a sense is called sentence. Well, this is very Yadish, this is you might have done it earlier, but my question is that words do not form sentences direct away. There is something that lies between these two things, word and sentence, and that is so. Before I jump to sentence from the word, I need to tell you what is the phrase. So, what is a phrase? What is a phrase? Yes? No, that is an idiom. That is idiom. When you say muhavra, that's an idiom. That's not a phrase. Now, see what actually phrase is. Phrase is, for example, if I will say you on the roof, I wrote here on the roof, or I will write in the room, or I will write in my heart. Are these sentences? Are these sentences? On the roof, in the room, in my heart. Yes, that's very real. These are sentences, but they are lacking something. What are they lacking? They are lacking subject. They do not have a subject. They do not have a subject. Say, for example, when I say on the roof, I don't know what is on the roof. When I say in the room, I don't know who is in the room. When I say in my heart, I don't know what is in my heart. So they are lagging subject. They are sentences without subjects. So that is what we mean by a phrase. Phrase is a sentence without a subject. Sentence without a subject. So it is similarly to say it is a skeleton without skin. So the structure is complete. So definitely when we say, now I can make it a sentence. For example, I will say the ball is on the roof, right? I can say the teacher is in the room. The teacher is in the room. Then I will say my child is in my heart. My child is in my heart. So I have added what? I have added subject straight. Yes. So now they become sentences. So that is what I was trying to say, that between the words and sentences lies what? Phrase. Phrase lies there. And then we have clause. Then we have clause. Now, no, I will come to that. अभी मैं वहाँ नहीं पहुँचा. I will come to that. अभी I'm just trying to take you to the tour of definition of a sentence. I'm still there. I have not reached sentence yet. That is subject and predicate are the parts of a sentence, but I am yet to reach there. So let's do it in order. So I was saying class. Now because I am saying that this, when I will say for example, I will say like this. I like chocolates, but my sister likes ice creams. Say for example, right? This is a sentence. It is a bit longer sentence. Now clause is a part of sentence. Clause is a part of sentence. It is a part of the bigger sentence, which has its own subject and predicate. Which has its own subject and predicate. Say, for example, when I say, I like chocolates, then I say, but my sister likes ice creams. So these are two sentences actually. One sentence is, I like chocolates. Here I am talking about myself. Then I am saying, my sister likes ice creams. I am talking about my sister. And her. The clauses are two. My sister likes ice creams. I like chocolates. Two sentences. The sentence is one. Now we will come to the, yes, exactly. Yes, these are two clauses. Both are independent. Now I will come to subject and predicate. Then we will come to these are the parts of sentences. Then we will come to types of sentence. Subject and predicate plus object. See, we always say in English that subject and predicate are the heart and soul of a sentence. So that means without these two things, the sentence does not exist at all. Now, the question is, what is a subject? What is a subject? And how does it look? How does it look? What is its appearance? These are two important questions. Subject is one, it can be two things. Doer of the action. Doer of the action. If some kind of action is happening in the sentence, so the person or the thing who commits that action, that is subject. That is subject. Say, for example, I will say, I play chess. I play chess. Here, a type of action is happening. Chess is being played. And who is doing that? I. So I becomes the subject. And then this is one case. Second case is there are certain sentences where action does not take place. It is not necessary that everywhere the action will take place. Say, for example, I will say, I am a teacher. So what kind of action does take place here? Nothing. Nothing happens here. I'm saying I am a teacher. So nothing happens here. You will say I am a student. Nothing is happening over here. So here we cannot say that subject is the doer of the action because the action is not taking place. So here what we say subject is anything we talk about. Anything we talk about. So these are two things. Either the subject is the doer of the action or it is something you talk about. These are the two things regarding the subject. And when the first part is doer of the action, it is prevalent to those sentences where action is taking place. And then we say anything we talk about, it is prevalent to those sentences where action does not take place at all. And this is one side of the thing. Second side of the thing is that we can also define subject like this. Whatever comes before a verb in a sentence. In a sentence is subject. That means you have a sentence and whatever comes before the verb. Say for example here, I am a teacher. Where is the verb? Am. So what comes before am? I. So I is the subject. Similarly here, when I say I play chess, what is the verb? Play. And what comes before play? I. So I is the subject. And similarly, sometimes you will see our subjects are very long. Say for example, I will say I, comma, my friend, comma, my sister, and my father. And my father live together. Live together. How will you say, well, where is the subject in this sentence? I am saying I, comma, my friend, comma, my sister, and my father live. So in such sentences, you will get a bit stuck where the subject is. So the easiest way to find the subject here is to find the verb first. So what is the verb? Live. The verb is live. And what comes before verb? I, my friend, my sister, and my father. This is all subject. They are all the part of subject. So it is called a complex subject because too many nouns are involved. So this is the easiest way to define subject is then whatever comes before a verb in a sentence is called subject. And sometimes you can have too many verbs in the sentence. So there you have to find the first verb. There you have to find the first verb. Yes. And now you should also remind that verb is not the part of subject. Verb is not the part of subject. That's why I said what is a subject and how does it look like? How does it look? That how does it when we say how does it look like, it means to say what it can be in part of the speech. If we say among us the part of speech, what it can be? It can be either a noun or a pronoun. Or a it can be noun or pronoun, or it can also be a gerund. It can also be a gerund. Now, these are the only possible things of being a subject. It will never be an adjective. Adjective is never a subject. It will never be a verb. It is never a subject. It will never be a preposition. It will never be an interjection. So it can either be a noun, pronoun, or a gerund. Or a gerund. That is to say, for example, I will say Gulmarg is my favorite destiny. Gulmarg is my favorite destiny. So where is the verb is? What comes before verb? Gulmarg. So it is the subject. And Gulmarg is what? It is a noun. It is a noun. And similarly, I will say, I am a lawyer. I am a lawyer. So I is subject and it is a pronoun. It is a pronoun. And then gerund. Gerund is ing form of the verb. Ing form of the verb. For example, I will say singing is my passion. Singing is my passion. So what is the verb here is? What comes before is singing. So singing is the subject, but it is neither noun nor pronoun. It is what? It is gerund. It is, and what is a gerund? Gerund is when we use verb as a noun. In simple sentence, when we use verb as a noun. Obviously, here singing means something, but you are using it as sing. When you say singing is my passion, so you are comparing singing to a kind of thing. You are saying it is a kind of thing that I like. That is my passion. So you are using verb as a noun here. So that's why it is called a gerund. It's called gerund. For example, if we say, we also say, flying birds catch my eye. Flying birds catch my eye. Sometimes you will see the flying birds, so they simply startle us with their beauty of flying. So what is flying here? It is a gerund. It is, it is a verb, there is no doubt about it, but it is a gerund here. Why? Because we are using it as a noun. So we can say that the subject is what? It is either the doer of the action, it can be something we talk about, or similarly, we can say simply we can say what comes before verb in a sentence is what we can say subject. And then well, we have to see how does it look like. So it looks like it can either be a noun, it can be a pronoun, or it can be a gerund. It can be a gerund. So I said that verb is not the part of a subject. Okay, is that clear up to here? Okay, fine. Now comes the question of predicate. Now comes the question of predicate. Predicate starts from the verb in a sentence. It starts, say for example, just now I said, I like my brother. I like my brother. So we know I is the subject here. I is the subject here. Like is what? Verb. So starting from the verb till the sentence ends, the whole part is called predicate. It is called predicate. Is that clear? So technically, if we say what is a predicate, predicate is something which tells us about the subject. Which tells us about the subject. Now, what does it tell us about the subject? It tells us how does the subject look, what does the subject do, how is the subject feeling, what is the subject doing. So there can be ample things, too many things. Say, for example, I say I am sleeping. So here the predicate will tell you that subject is doing what? He is sleeping. Sometimes you will say, I love ice cream. So here he will tell me about the likings. So there are too many things. So predicate is something which tells us something about the subject, which gives us information about the subject in a sentence, that why the subject is lying here, what is it doing here. So, starting from the verb in a sentence till the sentence ends, the whole part is called predicate. It is called predicate. And why it is called a predicate? Because it predicts about the subject. It predicts about the subject. And what does it predict? It can predict what a subject can do, how the subject can smell, how the subject can feel, what the subject is expecting. So there are so many and so on and so forth things here. So when somebody asks you, is verb the part of predicate? You can say yes. There is no doubt about it. Verb in a sentence is the part of predicate. It is always a part of predicate. Is that clear? Okay, fine. Then comes the third thing, which is called object. Which is called object. Up to now, we heard about subject, then we heard about action. And then we say the impact. There is, when there is action, there is impact of action. Always. When there is action, there is impact of action. That is to say, for example, I will say I write. I will say I write. So I may not be writing in vacuum. I may be writing on something. I may be writing on a particular thing. So one is to say I write. It is a complete sentence, but it does not carry an object. It does not carry an object. There is subject, there is action, but we don't know upon which the action is taking impact. So then when I say I write on paper, I write on paper. So where does the impact of action take place? It takes place on paper. So paper becomes the object. So paper becomes the object. And upon these two things, we have, when we will come to verb, so you can say transitive and intransitive verb. Transitive verb is when there is both subject as well as object. Intransitive verb is when there is only subject, there is no word. Say, for example, I will say the birds fly. The birds fly. So this is incomplete information. Yes. You say complement ही object होता है ना. Yes, that's why I'm saying we will come to that when we come to verbs. So, for example, if I say the birds fly, if I say the birds fly, so here we have a subject and we have action, but we don't have impact of action. So we know that birds fly, but we don't know where they are flying. We don't know where they are flying. And similarly here, when I say I write, I know I write, but I don't know where I am writing, on what thing I am writing. So that's why earlier I said subject and predicate are the heart and soul of sentence, but I did not mention object there because it is not necessary that it will be there always. It is not necessary that object will be there all the time. So definitely object is something, it is impact of the action. When the action takes place, we have to see where does it impact? Where does it? If, for example, sometimes we say I am hurt. I am I am hurt. So this is, we don't know where I am hurt. Am I hurt in my arm? Am I hurt in my leg? Am I hurt in my heart? We don't know that. So that means we don't have an object there. So similarly, when I say yes, 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 hmm, yes. See how we can say that. When we say I write a letter, so we know that letter is something which comes on paper because that is already defined. These are called predefined entities. You know that letter is a piece of paper. Yes. So these are predefined things. Say, for example, sometimes we skip. Say, for example, my father is a shopkeeper, right? My father is a shopkeeper. And then he takes lunch along. And then he tells me to take the lunch box to whom. I don't need to say, I will take, he doesn't need to say, take my lunch box with you. He can only say, take my lunch box with. This is correct. This is because the you is understood. The you is understood. Similarly, sometimes we skip subjects as well. Say, for example, you are in the classroom and the teacher will tell you, bring me a glass of water. Bring me a glass of water. Actually, he has to say, you bring me a glass of water. But because you are there present, so he doesn't need to use that you because it is predefined that he is talking to you. So similarly here, when we say, I write a letter, letter is an object because we know letter is a piece of paper. So we know where the impact of the action is taking place. Is that clear? And now there is confusion. Some people think that object and complement is same. We say that object and complement is same. Yes, definitely they are same, but still there is a difference. There is a, if they would be same, why would there be two names, object and complement? Yes. Say for example, complement is when the object ends the sentence. When the object ends the sentence. Say for example, I will say, I like you. I like you. So here you is what? Object. Undoubtedly it is the object. And then I can also write like this. I like you to the moon and back. To the moon and back. Do we say like this? I like you to the moon and bag. In both the sentences, I am saying the same thing. I'm not saying anything different. I'm not saying anything different. But in the first sentence, I like you, the sentence ends with the object. Sentence ends with the object. There is nothing beyond object. There is nothing beyond object. In such cases, the object is called complement. In such cases, the object is called complement. And if there is something beyond the object, then it is simply called object. Is that clear? So it is not that big a twist, but there is a little bit of difference. Is that clear? So we are done with subject, we are done with predicate, and we are done with object. Now I will come to the most important thing, that is types of sentence. Types of sentences. Now, first thing I would like to tell you is that whenever we say types of anything, we have a base for that. We have a base for that. That is to say, if I tell you how many types of people are there in the world, what will be your answer? Yes, one answer could be there are two types of people in the world, men and women. Is that right? So when you say there are two types of people in the world, men and women, you have made gender the base. So that is on the basis of the gender, there are two types of people in the world, men and women. Then you can also say there are two types of people in the world, good and bad. So here you are talking about the qualities. You can also say there are two types of people in the world, tall and short. So you are making height your base. So similarly, when we say types of sentences, we need to have a base upon what thing we are saying types of sentences. Is that clear? Yes. Is that clear? Yes. Now, the first thing is on the basis of clause. On the basis of clause. How many types of sentence do we have? How many types of sentence do we have? We have three types of sentences. Simple, then we have compound, then we have complex. Is that clear? So it is on the basis of what? On the basis of clause, we have three types of sentences. Simple, compound, and complex. Okay, is that clear? Yes. Now, before we go into that, we need to understand clause a bit more. We need to understand it a bit more. Clause are of three types. They are of three types. One is called principal clause. It is also called main clause or independent clause. Or independent clause. And then we have subordinate clause, also known as dependent clause. Also known as dependent clause. And then we have conditional clause. We have conditional, also known as if clause. Also known as if clause. Now, let us try to understand what is a principal or a main or independent clause. Principal clause or independent clause is a clause which stands on its own. Which stands on its own. That is to say that it does not need the existence of other clause to stand. It does not need the existence of other clause to stand. Say for example, I will say Maria married. Maria married when she was 25. What does it mean? Maria is a girl who married at the age of 25. These are two clauses. One is Maria married. One is Maria married. Second is she was 25. When I say Maria married, if I say it alone, Maria married, does it make complete sense? Yes, it does. It does make complete sentence. I don't need to say something else beyond it. It stands on its own. It stands on its own. But when I will say she was 25, when I will say she was 25, does it connote a proper sense? No, it doesn't. If I will tell you Maria married, you will say, okay, fine. Congratulations. When I will say she was 25, you will be telling me who? Who are you talking about? So this clause, she was 25, it does not stand on its own. It is a dependent clause. It is a dependent, and upon what it is dependent? It is dependent on the main clause, principal. And Maria married because it stands on its own, it is a principal clause. It is a principal clause. Is that clear? And then we have third type of clause, which is called conditional clause. If that is also called if clause. That means where action is dependent upon a condition. Where action is dependent upon a condition. Say, for example, I will say, if I go to Srinagar, I will bring you chocolates. So I will only bring you chocolates. That is only possible if I go to Srinagar. So I have kept a condition. I have kept a condition. Similarly, we say, if I work hard, I will crack the exam. I will crack the exam. So is it clear? Now we will come to simple, compound, and complex. The first thing is simple. The first thing is simple. Simple sentence has two definitions. We will analyze both. One is a sentence, a sentence which has one finite verb, which has one finite verb. Let's try to understand what does it mean finite verb. What do you mean by finite? Finite is something that either dies or transforms. That either dies or transforms. Infinite is something that remains the same. That remains the that is what I say transforms. I am saying that na? Transforms. Okay. So for example, I have a wall here. You can see that if this is a wall, I will say I painted a wall. I painted a I painted a wall. So where is the verb? Painted. So it is what? It is a finite verb. It is a finite verb because paint has been changed into painted. Paint has been changed into painted. And now I can say like this. I wrote on the painted wall. I wrote on the painted wall. Here we have two verbs. One is wrote, another is painted. But the finite verb is only one, and that is what? Wrote. That is wrote here. Why? Because painted, it is already, the action is complete. The action is complete. It has already died. It has already died. So when we say a sentence which has one finite verb, it is called simple sentence. It is called simple sentence. The more simple definition of it is that one independent clause is a simple sentence. One independent clause is a simple sentence. Say for example, we say I'm a teacher. You will say I'm a girl. I love chocolates. I go there. I do this. I do that. I have books. I have a car. These are all simple sentences. These are all simple. Then we come to compound sentences. Then we come to compound. Compound sentences are sentences where we have more than one clause, but all the clauses are independent. Where we have more than one clause, but all the clauses are independent and they are joined by coordinate conjunctions. They are joined by coordinate conjunctions. And these coordinate conjunctions, what we usually use, we represent it by this fan voice. What? And And boys, remember, F stands for, A stands for and, N stands for nor, B stands for but, O stands for or, Y stands for yet, and S stands for so. I'm not saying that these are the only coordinate conjunctions, but these are those coordinate conjunctions which are used time and again. They are the most used ones. So when we say compound sentences or the sentences which are where we find more than one clause, but all the clauses are independent. All the clauses are independent. That is to say, if we split a compound sentence, what remains? There remain simple sentences. They remain simple. Say, for example, I will say like this: I like maths and my sister likes science, but my cousin likes English. Like English. Now let's examine all the clauses. How will you see? First of all, you have to encircle the conjunctions. One conjunction is and, second conjunction is but. So we are left with three sentences. I like, if I say I like maths, does it need to have these does it need to have these clauses to carry its meaning? No. It stands on its own. Then I say my sister likes science. My sister likes science. Again, it stands on its own. Then I say my cousin likes English. Again, it stands on its own. So it is a compound sentence. It is made up of more than one clause, and all the clauses are what? Independent. All the clauses are independent clauses. Is that clear? So such types of sentences are called what? Compound sentences. So on the basis of what we say that sentences are of three types. On the basis of clause, we say we have simple sentence, we have compound sentence, and then we have complex sentence. Now we will move on to complex sentence. We will move on to complex sentences. Yes, the definition of compound sentence and complex sentence is almost the same except for few changes. Except for few changes. Say for example, in compound sentences, we say which is made up of more than one clause where all the clauses are independent. But here we say which is made up of more than one clause, but only one clause is independent. Only one clause is independent. Rest are dependent, and they are joined by subordinate conjunctions. They are joined by subordinate conjunctions like this. Meanwhile, in the same way, we have because we have what we can say too many. There are too many conjunctions like this. Say, for example, earlier I said this: Maria married when she was 25. Let us take this example. This is a complex sentence. How? Because it is made up of more than one clause. One clause is Maria married, another clause is she was 25. Yes. So here what we see, one only one clause is independent. Only one clause is independent. And the second one is what? Dependent. Yes, it is subordinate or it is dependent on what? The first clause. So it is a complex sentence. So, yes, we can also say like this: Maria married when she was 25 and she was not happy. And she was not happy. Even the third clause we add to it, that is also dependent. That is also dependent. So, the crux of the story is that complex sentence, we have one independent clause and the other clauses are dependent. Other clauses are dependent. Now, let's have a quick recap of what we learned today. First, I said any language, the basic unit of any language is alphabet. Basic unit of any language is alphabet. Alphabet is a set of letters. We don't have 26 alphabet in English. We have only one alphabet and we have 26 letters. We have 26 letters. And why do we need alphabet? We need alphabet to represent the word so that we can have the written form of language. And we know that every language must exist in two forms. One is written form of the language, another is that is called scripted form of the language, and then we have spoken form of the language. But it is not necessary. There are certain languages in the world which have only spoken form. Say, for example, Haryanvi. Haryanvi is a language that is actually a combination of Hindi and Punjabi. Hindi and Punjabi. If you might have come across the Haryanvi people, they speak half of Punjabi and half of Hindi. So that becomes Haryanvi. That becomes Haryanvi. So that language is only spoken. We don't have a scripted form of that. So these are what we can say born language. These are born language. And then yes. So we said we have written form of the language, spoken form of the language. And then we said grammar. What is grammar? Grammar is a set of rules which governs the language, which governs the language. And the most important function of the grammar is that it makes language symmetrical. It makes language look alike. Look alike. I said example, say for example, I have a marker in my hand. I am saying I have a marker. That means I possess one marker. I possess, and if you will go to America, if you will go to Britain, and there you will find a teacher, he has a marker in his hand. He will also say that I have a marker. He will not say I had a marker. Why? Because it is because of the rules of the grammar that he is able to say what I am saying. So to make language symmetrical, grammar is necessary. If there would not be grammar, so in some part of the world, I would be saying I have a marker, and in another part of the world, I would be saying I had a marker. Some other part of the world, I would be saying I was a marker. So there would be confusion and chaos everywhere. So that's why grammar is must, because grammar governs the language and it tells us how to make the use of language. Is that clear? Yes. Then we saw the letters and what are jumbled letters and words, word formation. One is the natural word formation. That is when letters combine together in a proper order to make sense, it becomes word. Then we have fixation. Then we have fixation, where prefixes are added, where suffixes are added, and then new words are framed. And then we said about after word we have a phrase. After word we have a phrase. Then we have a clause, and then we have a sentence. We have sentence. So now we are done with this. What we can say on the basis of clause, there are three types of sentences: simple, compound, and complex. We also read about the types of clauses. We have principal clause, a clause which stands on its own. Then we have subordinate clause, which needs the help of another clause to stand. And then we have conditional clause where we have to keep a condition for the happening of the action. And this is what we are done with today. If you have any, before closing, if you have any question, you can ask. Okay. Okay, and I hope that you will share it with other people if possible, so that maximum people get benefited. And yes, I am feeling appetite for tea. Have a nice, not night, good night. Huh? Okay, Allah. I think your sister had also joined. Okay, 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 fine. उसको मेरी सलाम करना उसने माइक बंद कर रखी है. Okay, fine. अल्लाह हाफिज.